We're here again, like literally.
Oh shit!
Here we go again. I think this is either the third or fourth time I have made a video talking about Nintendo being relative shitters in comparison. Yeah, reset the clock. Nintendo being relative shitters in the world of Smash competitive environments, and essentially either denying or making things as hard as possible, or specifically just canceling things outright in regards to competitive FGC-focused Smash Brothers. The story is, as of today, right here, an official statement from the Smash World Tour, which has been already going on, from what I understand. Once again, I'm not like I haven't been watching these things actively, but I know of them. I knew Panda had one as well, and there's also this Smash World Tour, but it's effectively canceled as of like now. Seemingly, it was an event that was not officially licensed from Nintendo, and they're now going down the route of needing official licensing. And this story gets really murky because the further in you get, the further in you start to understand that, you know, Panda was essentially working their butt off to be the exclusive Smash World Tour of this year. And they had official licensing with Nintendo. You know, one of their dad works at Nintendo or something like that. And they were essentially warning everybody, hey, if you're not licensed, it's not going to work out well for you. This is a very abridged situation from what I understand it. And it happened. They wanted themselves to essentially be the main focus of a Smash World Tour event. The other big Smash World Tour event is now effectively canceled because they don't have proper licensing. But the weirdest part about it is that, yeah, they were trying to push out competition is what it seems like. This might not echo directly to just Smash World Tour events. This might be a much broader sort of like terrifying scope of, well, can you do any kind of Smash tournament anymore without licensing? Why do you need a license? Because in general you do, right? In general, for almost any single thing that you do that's a tournament, if the developers and and the people that own the properties to these games, they are absolutely in their legal rights to shut you down. They own it. Your ability to rebroadcast, restream footage that technically belongs to them is 100% in their legal rights. However, it's a PR nightmare, right? It's an absolute PR nightmare if you do that, and most companies sort of stay away from it, right? Unless there's something really weird going on. Nintendo would take down tournaments for Smash before that featured like mods or something like that. One thing happened earlier this year where Smash was obviously not included in EVO, and that was a big thing. And I'm almost relative to say that maybe this has something to do with it. Like this whole debacle here could potentially have something to do with Nintendo not wanting Smash at EVO and instead focusing on like just one thing, right? Just one thing that is the license holder or something like that. I don't know. I think obviously Panda wanting to strong arm the entire competitive community, the entire streaming community, all the organizers is definitely really bad. And also doesn't set a precedence that looks good for Panda or Nintendo, but also Nintendo going with it, right? Also Nintendo essentially buying into, you know, whatever cryptocurrency they're trying to pitch on them. And being like, yeah, you know what? Nintendo's like, yeah, you know what? You're right. We're gonna go with this route, and if you don't have the proper licensing for all this stuff, we're gonna take you down. And that's kind of what happened today. Like, that's kind of what happened like at this point. And it seemed like before there was actually a room where this stuff was fine, where there was like, yeah, you know, you're allowed to have your own events featuring our game as long as you just don't do this, this, and this, right? And it was like, okay, a general parameter of like no modded stuff, right? No weird shit like that. But now it might be seemingly done after this stuff. And this isn't like, once again, like the two culprits of this situation is likely Panda Global and their big Smash World Tour event that they were trying to do in tandem with this. They're trying to be the focus one and sort of buying their way in and making a relationship to Nintendo and sort of like being the one that is like, hey, it's just going to be us or this way or the highway. And then Nintendo going with it is the weirdest part for me, where it's like, you know, this is going to set you guys up for disaster, right? You know, like, I mean, I get it. You guys absolutely hate your fans. You guys absolutely hate people that play your games competitively. You've hated them since like the early 2000s. And there's been so many situations that have popped up over the past 20 years to sort of line up with that scenario that is really sad and depressing, including like Evo not getting Smash earlier this year, to almost like put a stake in the heart of practically the entire competitive community. They even say they're aware of the blowback. Dude, to like put a stake in the heart, not just of like, oh, we just want one world tour. No, to be like, you have to essentially get sign off for the PR and the licensing for all this stuff. And it's like, okay, then you get a lot of these other tournament organizers. Well, let us run a tournament then. But there is no focused indicator. There is no clear path to where people can easily go get the licensing, right? There's no clear path where people can be like, yay, you know what? We can jump in and suddenly be able to run a tournament because we got the licensing figured out. That doesn't exist. Seemingly Panda had some folks on the inside, on their side, and now everybody else was essentially something different, and Panda was like the official thing now. And this is just the most brutal, right? The most absolute brutal situation for a hardcore competitive community. The most brutal situation for people that are trying to get into Smash Brothers competitively or have had Smash Brothers, much less competitive Smash Brothers tournaments, be livelihoods for many people. Granted, tournament organizers don't make a ton of money, and I'm assuming what happened with the Smash World Tour, this thing being canceled, just lines up with the fact that they're probably out hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars, a shit ton of money, because now their big event is essentially canned. Well, what a way to just absolutely fuck over everybody. Somebody said they seem to be like aware of the backlash. I don't think they are. I don't think they're ready for this, because seemingly very few people are actually going to end up going to the new events that are officially theirs if they just can't host Smash tournaments from this point forward. If you just can't host Smash Brothers Melee tournaments, if you can't host Ultimate tournaments, anything like that. Like, it is absolutely brutal. And I wouldn't be surprised if nobody's going to go to the Panda finale or the Panda World Tour thing. So there's an interesting history behind this, chat, which is why I'm chiming in on this. And it kind of boils down to the history of the Capcom FGC and what that sort of means and my awareness of it. So if we go back like to the early 2000s, right? We're talking like the very early years of EVO. We're talking about like the very, very, very early runnings where most of the time you did not need to get specific licensing agreements and approvals for a lot of this stuff. You just sort of held your own tournament, either recorded or streamed games. They even sold DVDs. I'm assuming they got something, but usually it was completely fine, right? In this time frame, the early streaming time frame, early YouTube, like Team Spooky, early stuff, it was sort of okay for this, because a lot of these fighting game companies sort of treated their tournament following, their hardcore following, as a grassroots event, right? And they just don't touch it, because if they get involved, they might end up it might end up being murky water. If someone that's officially responsible that is working outside of the company is a representative. I can attest to this situation, because when I joined to work for Capcom for Ultimate Marvel 3, there was no official Capcom Cup, right? This is before World Tours. The only thing that really existed was EVO and Togeki in Japan. So it's like the big Japanese, like regional in Japan, or, you know, national in Japan. And you also had the EVO World Finals over here. But they're still, like, for the most part, like, a lot of them are grassroots run. And in my situation, I knew that, yeah, Capcom doesn't touch this shit with a 10-foot pole. Most of these developers, like, you're not going to see the faces of the devs on stage for these events, right? No, they just let them happen. Let's just let our fans have fun. They're going to play our old games, whatever. It's just healthy for the community, because it's completely fine. They don't try to jump in and make whatever, like, couple $1,000s they might make off an event. It's not worth it. Just let them have fun. And I know this personally because Capcom era 2011 was 100% very cautious and very superstitious about working with people that were directly in the community on official products. And they wanted to consult, after doing some stuff with them, right after, like, you know, talking to some of the community people in Capcom, I was going to make official tutorials for Capcom that would actually be made by an FGC member. And that had never been done before, technically, at least on that scale. And I remember getting told, and I don't blame them, from people inside that were trying to make this happen, from other people that were like, this took a lot of approval. I remember specifically getting the gig, getting told, don't fuck this up. Japan sort of like is a no deal to this kind of stuff. And there might be some folks heads on the line working in Capcom USA that want to get this cool community stuff like official. And they had to, like, kind of work their ass off to make it happen. So I got told literally, like, the first time I'm doing this, don't fuck this up. Long story short, it eventually leads Capcom to working with other content creators because it goes fine. They're working with me on several other things. And then also officially working with tournament organizers in the future for Capcom Cup, where they would be working with big tournaments like CEO or Combo Breaker, UFGT, like all these things, like Final Round, officially making it a part of their tournament run that leads up to the big Capcom Cup at the end of the year. So it's great. Effectively the exact same thing that's happening to Smash right now, right? Effectively just like integrating themselves officially in some way and just being a part of it, but still letting the event actually run. The problem is Nintendo esports does not exist, right? Nintendo even practically officially acknowledging this stuff hasn't really happened until the past year or so. That was actually a big deal where it's like Nintendo actually growing a head on their shoulders when it comes to their management. I'm sorry, comes to their relationship management with their esports stuff and actually letting communities do stuff officially. This is cool. They might actually be able to, you know, provide something that'll make some of these events go somewhere instead of just being specifically grassroots and have that be that and that's it until the game dies and nobody cares, right? Okay, but now we're only doing one. You know, now it's like, hey, we're gonna do that only for one event. And what about all the other events that aren't world tours? What about all the other events that are this stuff? Now there's like a big stigma of like, and from what I understand from the people that want to run events, I think I watched, it was Ludwig that briefly talked about this, and he wants to run like a big Smash Invitational or something like that, and he doesn't know if he can anymore. Like the legality of this is now super vague, whether or not they are going to come after you because they shut this thing down because it was not official. So that's terrifying. And it all boils back once again to weird shit that Nintendo did, all the way back to Smash Melee with early Evo. It also relates to Nintendo doing weird shit with Evo earlier this year, right? That shit also was a big element of like mystery of like, okay, so what the hell happened? Is it because Sony bought Evo? Maybe Sony doesn't want Smash at Evo. No, apparently they did. Apparently they tried to get it and it just didn't happen. For whatever reason, like Nintendo not saying no, or things like this. They have their own official esports thing that they're doing specifically with Panda. You know, everything else is off the table. And it just is the most brutal shit. Like, I have always had sympathies for the competitive Smash community because they are at the elements, they are under the elements of a company that barely even knows of their existence, much less the ones that are actually paying attention, which is not anybody in Japan most likely, it absolutely hates them. Absolutely hates that they have to deal with this shit. They absolutely hate that they have to manage esports and deal with people that are playing this game that we made for babies type of thing. Like, their mindset behind it has been always so archaic and stupid. It's brutal to see to eventually come to a point where now they're just like, yeah, it's an official statement. Yeah, if you don't like it, you know what? We expect the we expect the pushback on this. It is complete trash. I don't understand it. Like, I do not. We've had moments in the past where Capcom has been kind of shitters about certain things. But they've always made the process afterwards of like, okay, so if you want to become something official for it, here is the process to do so. And it might not be like super cheap, right? It might actually be relatively expensive to do so in some situations, but at least there is a bureaucratic process to get from point A to point B. This is how we run a tournament. Who do we consult? Like the Capcom Creator Program and all this kind of stuff was sort of created as a result of all of that. And they actually want you to be involved and work with them. And if you want to host something, here's how it goes. To me, I really get burned when I see companies, if not esports organizers, take advantage of fandom, where they just see that, oh, there's a lot of fans of this, like, ooh, we can get them. Like, we can get them, man. Much less a company that holds the licensing rights to something super big that a lot of people love, and just taking that shit for granted. And that is ultimately like a big issue with Nintendo, is that they don't listen a lot of the time. They just do their own fucking thing, and if you don't like it, well, we're just going to make a new game that'll introduce a whole new world of millions of 10-year-olds that will eventually grow up and love it just as much and not be aware of all this shit. And it's true. Like, it sucks that it's true. Like, all the Nintendo stuff that comes out, all the new Smash Brothers games, you're just gonna get a new audience that replaces the old ones, and then yada yada yada, the cycle just continues. Because they're just too fucking big. They got the war chest from the DS and the Wii days, and they don't need to give a shit. So it burns me hard. I hate that I have to make another video talking about this. I hate that we have to be here in a situation where I'm not a big Smash FGC guy, right? I am not. But Smash Brothers has been a big part of my quote-unquote career for the past quite a long time. at this point, I do think that there is at least room to make you aware of this stuff, because I love this game. This game is super fun. Do I care about any of it competitively? Do I even like 1v1? I don't. I actually aggressively dislike 1v1 Smash, and I don't like watching it very much. But people need to be made aware that this is happening and what is essentially going on behind the scenes. So what do you do at this point? I don't know. I actually don't know what the process is to go about and change this stuff. Who do you get a hold of at Nintendo? What Twitter thread do you join? Like, what exactly is the process from this point forward to get shit done? I don't even know, man. Maybe Panda is the one to target about this, that they should allow this stuff to still happen. But I don't even know if that agreement is in Panda's favor. It was Nintendo that ultimately fired the gun. It was Panda that convinced them that everyone else seems to be like guilty of this shit, but it seems to be that Nintendo still is like the smoking gun of all this, because once again, they always are. It always boils down to this shit. We hate our content creators, we hate our fans, we hate our competitors. We don't give a shit. We're just going to always come after you and make life as hard on you as possible. Why? I don't know. Yes, I'm specifically talking about Panda Express, chat. If you didn't get that figured out yet, then I'm sorry.